Pokemon just announced Pokemon Legends ZA, and it looks like they might actually be turning things around. Maybe. If you're like me, you've been incredibly frustrated with Game Freak and the Pokemon Company recently. Pokemon Legends Arceus dropped in January of 2022, and that game actually really surprised me. It wasn't a perfect game, but I was optimistic about the future. And then they turned around and dropped Pokemon Scarlet and Violet in that same year. And, well...
I don't hate it, I just don't like it at all. And it's terrible.
And after they refused to address the issues and often made it worse with updates and $35 freaking DLC, I was pretty firmly on the I'm done with this wagon. I'm still incredibly frustrated with Pokemon overall, but I gotta say, the more I look at the announcement of Pokemon ZA, the more I'm actually getting excited about the possibilities here. So join me down in the comments below, give me your thoughts and perspectives as an ex-Pokemon trainer desperately holds on to a fading hope that this series can actually be good again. Oh my gosh, that's so melodramatic. Here's my thoughts. All right, so I'm going to start out this video with possibly a pretty controversial statement, but one that I fully believe is the actual truth. Pokemon Legends Arceus is the best Pokemon game that Game Freak has ever released. I know that sounds crazy. I know we all love the old games, Red and Blue, Ruby and Sapphire, Emerald, Gold, Silver, Crystal, all these classic games, but if you take off these sparkly nostalgia glasses, I think we can all see that gameplay loop-wise, Pokemon Legends Arceus is the strongest entry in the series. The manual throwing, the overall just progression and gameplay flow, the way that you level up in real time, and just so many more things happen so much more fluidly. Like if you play that game and then you go back to the old one, it just feels like you're walking through concrete that's not quite dry yet, but it's almost there. And it's just a grind, you know what I mean? You have HMs, you have lack of experience share, which I know can be a problem on its own because it makes the game too easy, but you get the point. Personally, to me, I think Legends Arceus has some of the best flow of any Pokemon game ever released, and a lot of people seem to agree with me. The fact that Game Freak here seems to be listening to the reception of the game and putting out another Legends game instead of completely abandoning the concept gives me a little bit of hope. And I know it's kind of natural that they release the Legends game now, kind of in between generations, but let's be real here, they are breaking their flow. Normally, we would just have the next remakes after Scarlet and Violet. So we're kind of changing things up here, and that could be a sign for good things to come. Another reason that I feel like Game Freak might actually be listening this time around is we have Mega Evolution coming back. And unless I'm completely mistaken, which I don't think that I am, this is actually the first time one of the mainline gimmicks has made a comeback. We've had Z moves, we've had Mega Evolutions, we've had huge maxing, embiggening, if you will. We've had Terras now with Scarlet and Violet, which there may be elements of that in here, we don't really know. But either way, Mega Evolution was like far and away everyone's favorite gimmick, and it seems to be coming back here. In my personal opinion, it would be much better if they took one of these gimmicks, ran with it, and just kept ironing it out and perfecting it as they went, and it would be my personal choice, and a lot of other people's, to have Mega Evolution be that thing that we run with and improve. But either way, Mega Evolution is actually making a comeback, and people have been asking for that. So there's another aspect that makes it seem like they're listening. Another thing that Pokemon fans have been wanting and asking for and speculating about for a very long time now is Pokemon Z. Pokemon X and Y had some really interesting story, some interesting characters, cool lore, lots of neat things going on, but a lot of kind of dangling plot threads throughout the game. And then they just completely fumbled the ball. Never actually made a sequel, never made the expanded game like an Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, like an Ultra X and Y kind of thing. Nothing. They absolutely dropped it and just moved on. We've wanted this for a long time. Pretty much every Pokemon reaction video jokingly, and even these new ones jokingly will say, oh, we're gonna get Pokemon Z now. But this time it actually happened. And not only that, we combined Pokemon Legends with Pokemon Z and put it together with Mega Evolutions. They took all of these things that people wanted and shoved them into one game, and that has me really excited and really thinking that they might actually be paying attention here. And the other great thing is they maybe, with a huge asterisk that I will be talking about later on in this video, maybe are slowing down. We have an entire year without a Pokemon game. No new Pokemon game is coming out in 2024. Isn't that not insane? I'm excited for it because it means maybe they're actually going to take time and focus down, just really get dialed in and make that darn game function. If they take the time with this year off to release this game, possibly on Switch 2, but even if it's on the current Switch, if they really just focus, make this game work smoothly, that would just be huge for their overall perception. And with all of these things combined, the Legends game, the Megas coming back, Pokemon Z after a decade of waiting with no resolution on X and Y's story, and actually taking a longer time to release this game, I really feel like they might be listening. And with all of that information, this is why I think we actually should be excited for this one. Other than the obvious, like they're actually taking more time to build this game and develop it. X and Y are totally slept on. People like to talk about them in the context of them being like just baby easy. The experience share is broken. And you know what? You're totally right. It's super easy. The games are very, very easy. If you use Megas and do everything in your power to beat the game, you will absolutely steamroll the game. If you've ever played a video game before, ever, you are going to absolutely destroy it. But with that in mind, the Pokédex was sick. There was a lot of really cool Pokemon that came out of X and Y. We got Aegislash, we got Greninja, tons of other ones as well. Volcanion, Xerneas, and Yveltal, all these cool legends. But the other aspect of X and Y that was actually really great is the story and the lore of the region. There were a lot of dangling plot threads, like I said earlier, in X and Y that really never got resolved, but the things that they gave us were actually super interesting. And just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, I'm just going to read this straight from Bulbapedia. This is AZ, or as I think I used to say before. I'm pretty sure it's AZ. But here's some of the history of Pokemon X and Y if you're not familiar. 3,000 years prior to the events of Pokemon X and Y, a war broke out between two countries. This long conflict was drawn out and many lives were lost. People treated Pokemon with special powers as mere tools in their conflict, so they gathered lots of Pokemon, including Pokemon with unique powers, in order to emerge victorious. The soldiers believed that they needed even more powerful Pokemon. AZ loved his Floette, which he had received from his late mother, but it was forcefully taken from him by the soldiers and became just another sacrifice in the war. AZ received the body of his beloved Pokemon. You heard me right. The body. It died. A Pokemon died in a Pokemon game. Sometime later, and out of unspeakable grief, he built the ultimate weapon to restore it to life. And even though, this is me talking again, even though it's called the ultimate weapon, it wasn't initially a weapon. It was designed to bring that Pokemon back to life. He succeeded, but unable to overcome his despair, he turned the machine into a weapon, with which he destroyed both sides of the conflict, ending the war. Destroy everything, start over. His Floette, disgusted with the fact that the machine was powered by the life energy of other Pokemon, left him. As revealed by documents kept in Lysander Labs, AZ's younger brother had wished to claim Kalos out of his own greed. After AZ ended the war with the ultimate weapon, his brother realized the error of his ways and sought to make amends for his actions by burying the weapon in an attempt to prevent it from ever being used. AZ's incredible height and immortality, by the way, resulted from his exposure to the ultimate weapon. Also, fun fact, AZ was the former king of Kalos. So you have a king who was friends with a Pokemon that died in a war, and he was so upset about that he created a machine to bring it back to life, but then it left him, so he turned it into a weapon and destroyed everything to end the war. If that's not some of the most interesting backstory in a Pokemon game that you've ever heard, I don't know what is. If we get a game that really just expands on the lore of X and Y with AZ, the war, the ultimate weapon, and what happened when it was used, this could be one of the most interesting Pokemon games to date. And then obviously where people draw most of their hype for a game is from the trailer. This trailer was interesting because we didn't get a lot of gameplay, but we did get an interesting cinematic that can provide some kind of confusing but interesting details. So let's just kind of rapid fire run through some things that I noticed. So first off, as confirmed by Nintendo and the Pokemon Company themselves on Twitter, the game will take place entirely inside of Lumiose City, which is kind of crazy. We're going to get a urban city-based territory Pokemon game, which could really change up the gameplay because we're not going to really be going through open routes and fields, it sounds like. It could be possible with some time travel kind of thing. We'll have to wait and see. But either way, we will have a very large city, probably the largest city we've ever seen in a Pokemon game, that we can navigate through, and that's just going to be super interesting. You can also see in certain shots of the trailer that it's kind of got a multi-level build, so if we can have like the main city and then maybe like an underbelly and kind of the back alleys and things like that, that'll be really cool. I'm going to really enjoy going through that. It also, so with PLA being kind of more of an ancient type game, I think we all assumed that that's what the Legends games were going to be. We get an on-paper drawing of Kalos and the city planning early on, which I think led a lot of people to believe that it was going to be ancient, but then it changes over to kind of a Tron-looking cinematic almost. So it's entirely possible that we may be getting a more futuristic take here. So they could be planning to use Pokemon Legends as not only prequel stories or kind of alt-universe stories, but also a sequel at the same time. Instead of just making Pokemon Z, we can call it Legends because it doesn't fit in with like the main games. That seems to be what they're doing. I'm kind of on the side that this may end up being a sequel, but it's entirely possible that we may have some time travel in there too. We'll just have to wait and see. Another thing that I did notice and see a lot of other people point out as well is in the dash, in the Pokemon Z Dash A, this has to be the weirdest named Pokemon game, like ZA, Z Dash A, I don't know, whatever it is. Either way, the dash has a little dash of red and blue in there. So people are speculating that the X and Y Legends may be involved. And to that I say, well, yeah, but it's something to note. There's color in there. But like I said, really the biggest takeaway is it looks like we're going to have a multi-level, very urban setting in a big city for a Pokemon game. I'm super interested to see what that looks like. I'm assuming we'll have lots of big interiors to explore, multiple levels of buildings, the underbelly of the city, back alleys, a very different gameplay style, and different is good. Different is really what Pokemon needs right now. It's almost kind of funny too, because one of the biggest complaints that I personally had with Scarlet and Violet and a lot of other people too is that you couldn't go in most of the buildings and there really wasn't a lot to see in anything. So they took that and they turned around and said, oh, you don't like that you can't go into a building? We're going to make a game entirely about buildings. So enjoy that. So those are some general reasons to be excited for Pokemon Legends ZA, but here's why I'm personally actually pretty excited for this. Pokemon X and Y is where I actually fully dived into the Pokemon series as a player. I previously only had dabbled into the games, third generation games, specifically with my neighbors. We would actually go outside. They owned the game. I did not, but I did have a Game Boy. So we would use a link cable and different copies of the game from their brothers and sit and play. And I would use their brother's Pokemon, or I would like help them with fights that they were stuck on and stuff like that. So we'd be like laying outside on a trampoline playing Pokemon on the Game Boy Advance, or going in the garage so we could actually see the screen before they were backlit. That was a time. Oh my goodness. No wonder I wear glasses today. But yeah, we did a lot of that. But X and Y was the first time that I actually personally owned a Pokemon game. Another reason I'm excited to go back to Kalos or the world of Pokemon X and Y is X and Y were the most social Pokemon games at the time, and probably ever, at least to me. The player search system, I believe it's called, or the PSS, is absolute perfection in a multiplayer system in a Pokemon game. Ever since then, it has only gotten worse, and I cannot figure out why. So I really would love in Pokemon Legends ZA for them to return to the simplicity of the social aspects of the game and really take that into account and continue that in this game. That would be absolutely amazing. And the other reason why I'm the most excited for this game myself is that Pokemon, as you've heard it said, for a game that is about evolution, it's probably evolved the least of all of the games that we used to play when we were kids. Pokemon needs to change. It doesn't have to completely change, but it needs to evolve, become bigger and better than what it was. We've tried that, but we've really, every time we take a little step forward, it feels like we just jump back. Probably like 2 or 3 steps even. We take one and then we just fall down the stairs every single time. I don't want this game to be a step in the right direction. I want it to be a leap. No more baby steps. I want to be able to say, this is a great game right here, no asterisks. It's good, it's fun, it works, and it's a great time. Now, admittedly, with all of these reasons that I've said, we should be excited for these games, primarily the one that they're taking time. We could turn around and they could announce Unova remakes tomorrow. And then this game could be as half-baked as Scarlet and Violet and all the other things that they've done more recently. That could absolutely happen. But this time, I'm choosing to be hopeful and excited rather than pessimistic. So I really hope that that pays off for me. I want to enjoy Pokemon again. When I was a teenager, I used to watch tons of Pokemon YouTube. I was into the competitive scene. I bred for shinies. I literally started this channel partially for Pokemon content, but I just can't pretend to enjoy something that I don't. I want Pokemon and Game Freak to put some actual care into the games that I used to care so much about. It seems like they could possibly be listening to us this time, but there's also a lot of reasons why maybe they won't, some of which you might not even have considered. In this video, I talk about why I really don't feel like Pokemon has a lot of incentive to change, even though I hope that it does. So jump over there and join the conversation in those comments as well, and I'll see you there.